Hello and welcome back to the wellness discussion of Flex. This is our second episode in September. I'm Jeanette Diergaard, your host for Flex, and I'll let my beautiful guest introduce herself.
Thank you, Jeanette. I'm Annalien Turner.
Yes.
I'm a registered dietitian from Smart Health Namibia.
Awesome, and today we'll be talking a bit about comfort food and after this lockdown and during COVID-19, we all feel a bit stressed out and everything. So we'll just talk about the effects of comfort food and what it really is and what it does to our bodies. Yes, Annalien, why do we stress eat and what happens when we stress eat? Yeah, what's the effect afterwards and everything?
Okay, so stress eating is also called emotional eating. So it means that our emotions are in turmoil for whatever reason. So usually what happens is that when you are under a lot of stress, there's a lot of stress hormones being released, like adrenaline and cortisol and so on. And then you get the fight-flight reaction. It also means that your breathing increases and also the blood flow to your muscle increases. And therefore you would need more energy. So more energy is flowing to your muscles for this reaction. And the energy that we need, the fuel, is called glucose. And glucose we get from carbs. So we tend to eat more carbohydrate-rich foods to try and fuel that need. So that's the physical aspect.
Yeah.
There's also the emotional aspect. When you feel sad or uncomfortable and so on, we tend to eat, again, carbohydrate-rich kinds of food, but simple carbohydrates that's quickly converted into glucose. And that's why we tend to eat chocolates and cookies and all of that. It also gives us a sense of power or control. So whatever I'm eating, that's a behavioral reason. I've got control of what is going into my body. So there's a couple of reasons. It's quite a complex story. And by the way, I've read that about 40% of people, when they are under a lot of stress, would eat more. And 40% won't eat, would even stop eating or eat very little. And about 20% is not influenced by it. So one also needs to realize what type of person are you and how do you respond to stress and especially emotional stress.
Yeah, and when we look at the types of food that we eat during that time, can we say then that they're bad food? And is that mostly just the processed sugars?
I'm glad that you ask, because as dietitians we like to assure people that all food are okay. Okay, so moderation is key. But basically you get the three what we call macronutrients: carbohydrates, proteins and fats. And it's important to look at all of those and then also not only the quantity but also the quality of those foods. But usually we tend to focus more on carbs because there's a quick release to glucose for all those reasons that I've mentioned before. But it's important to have a variety of foods. And there's no one particular food that's bad. And then also from a scientific point of view, if we talk about carbohydrates, the simple carbohydrates, the so-called bad carbohydrates, the cookies and the ice cream and so on, that is still allowed, but moderation is key. Not every day, but,
Weekly?
Exactly, occasionally, yes.
Yes, and then what would be the food that we can take when we feel stressed, but not sweets or the bad types of food, the processed sugars?
Yes. So one also must realize that the chance of being under an emotional stress is high. And I think we all fall off the wagon. So now and again we will overeat. I think if you are under that kind of stress, there's a couple of things that one can do. But I always try to explain to my patients, if you cheat, don't cheat too often. Cheat with smaller portions, and then if you can, rather change the simple carbs alone into a meal or a food, but just small things like a slice of bread with peanut butter or a little bit of fish on it, like sardines, or having popcorn. That is also sort of a more healthy snack. And non-starchy vegetables like your cucumber, tomatoes, lettuce, although it's a carbohydrate, the carbohydrate content is so low, it's non-significant. meaning it can't make you fat. So you can eat as much as you like.
Okay.
That's free food.
Yeah, so awesome. And yes, I just also wanted to add, there's something that I read about chronic inflammation. One of the bad effects of stress eating and the bad habits of stress eating bad foods, the processed sugars, and if we do that regularly, what are the health effects?
Okay, so when you eat a lot of sugary foods, simple carbohydrates, meaning that the carbohydrates contain very little fiber or no fiber, and it converts very quickly into glucose. It means that for a short period of time, there's too much glucose or sugar in the blood, meaning that there's a disbalance. And the body needs to do something with that. So it converts very quickly as fat, and it's being stored as fat. But every time that you have that, we call it an insult on cellular level. So it's a disbalance for a short period, but we get hits. And if you get a hit now and again, it's okay. But if you get hits all the time, it means that there's a disbalance, meaning there's inflammation, which is not a good thing. Yeah.
So what actually, how do we know that we're experiencing that inflammation?
It's amazing. Our body's got a lot of ability to take a lot of these things. So you probably won't know. It's like a little elastic that you are stretching. You can stretch, and you can tolerate it. But up to a point, things are going to happen. So if you continue with this kind of behavior for long term, a lot of this fat is also depositing here at your abdomen, your belly. And it's a different kind of fat than the fat that's on the hips and the arms and so on. It's what we call the bad fat, the toxic fat. Scientifically, we call it visceral fat. Yeah. So that fat in itself produces a lot of what we call cytokines, inflammatory substances, and so on. So that's not what we want. Also, it accumulates around the organs, so the organs work a lot harder. And then your risk for chronic diseases increase, like cancer, diabetes, heart disease. Some people develop fatty liver. It looks like an alcoholic's liver, but it's not. It's because of the fat causing damage, and we see that a lot. And also, generally you don't feel very well because there's chronic inflammation in the body. Also, when one is overweight, by the way, you're actually in a chronic low-grade inflammatory state because you're in a disbalance. So it's very important to try and get your weight right. So it's the quantity of the food, the amount of food that we eat, but also the quality. What are we feeding ourselves?
Okay. And during these times or after stressful situations like we've experienced with the lockdown and everything, a lot of people gained a lot of weight with obvious reasons, but then afterwards we're still in that stressful period. Is it good to go on a diet after that? Doesn't that also add more emotional stress?
I'm glad that you asked, because I see now a lot of patients, with the effects of lockdown, and specifically now overweight, don't feel very well, all of those things. We can definitely do something about the diet. Again, we have to look at the personality. What kind of person are you? Are you overweight? Are you underweight now? Are you normal weight but you just don't feel very well? So we definitely look at diet. But there's also the other techniques as well. You've mentioned that you're going to have a program, or part of this program will be exercise.
Yes.
Also meditation or praying or being calm, those things. Mindfulness, what are you doing where you are? Look at, for example, your eating patterns. Are you someone that enjoys being at home, but the problem is you're snacking? Or is it actually better for you? Because some people, when they're at their office, their friends and they are going to restaurants, fast food outlets. So it's quite a complex situation, and one needs to look at all these different things to address that. But I think it's a good idea to go to a professional, like a registered dietitian, to try and assist you for your specific needs. And also what's very important, to have it nutritionally balanced.
No, that's awesome. We'll go for a short break, just a quick ad break, and then we'll come back with more, and then Annalien can tell us more about what she's doing and what her practice can offer to you. Thank you. Okay, we are back after the short break, and yes, we'll just talk to Annalien a little bit more. Annalien, you're from Smart Health Namibia. Can you tell us what Smart Health Namibia is and what it is you guys do?
So that is what my practice is. So Annalien Turner, registered dietitian, trading as Smart Health Namibia. So it's to try and teach people that you're smart if you look after health, because health is wealth.
Yeah, well, health is wealth. That's a nice one. Do you have where are you situated? Where's your practice situated?
So I've got two practices.
Okay.
The one is at 35 Veld Street, that's sort of in the CBD. And then the other one is here in Eros at the Windhoek Digestive and Liver Disease Center on the corner of General Muhammad Murtal and Omaruru Street in Eros.
Yeah, so just around the corner from us. No, that's awesome. So then, do they call in and they book appointments, and then what's the process there?
Okay, so luckily medical aids pay for consultations, providing that you've got funds available. It's not from the day-to-day or the doctor's portion, is what we call allied health. So most people have sufficient funds there. The easiest is to phone the number, my cell phone number.
Yeah.
If I don't respond immediately, they can just leave a message and I will return the call. Am I supposed to give the number?
No, we will.
Later.
Yeah, we
Okay.
will have it. Yeah.
So they can either phone or they can go on the website. It's a new website, so it will probably be alive end of this week.
Okay.
And then also email me.
So you recently started with Smart Health Namibia. You were at Clean Eats first. So how long has Smart Health been trading now?
About a month.
About a month. It's still a little baby. Pasgebore baba.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So then your colleague that you worked with at Eat Clean, she also started her own practice.
Yes.
Okay.
So we've been trading together, working together for 5.5 years. Wonderful. Learn a lot of things. But we've just decided that the practices, we want to grow the practices in different ways. So it was just a natural business decision. So we're still colleagues, we're still friends.
Yeah.
Just moving on. And by the way, I've got an Instagram also, same name, Smart Health Namibia, and Facebook.
Add your Instagram handle and everything. No, that's very awesome. Okay, so yes, back to the diets again, and there's this misconception about the types of diets that you eat is according to your body type. Can you just explain or just tell us if that is a true fact?
Okay, so I'm so glad that you asked that, because there's so many information, out there. A lot of it is not what we call evidence-based science or backed by science facts. And one of them is, for example, the body type.
types.
I've got this body type. I've got big bones, all of those things. I get it often. Or the blood type diet and so on. Your metabolism is made up by a couple of things. It's quite complex. For example, your length. If you're taller, there's more of you. So that versus someone that's quite small. If you're a man, again, you're quite taller. Also your body composition. Do you have more muscle versus fat? Because muscle is also more metabolically active. How old are you? Because when you get older, things are getting a little bit slower. We can't blame everything on our genes, but genetics also play a role. So there's quite a couple of factors that make up your metabolic rate. And then also burning off food, that also takes energy. So that also comes into the equation. And then activity. But activity, it does have an effect, but I think a little bit less than what we think. So you have what we call a resting metabolic rate. So how much energy do you need while you are sleeping to be alive? And it's got nothing to do with your body type. It's got to do with those kinds of factors. And it's about energy in other words, the food that we are eating versus energy being used. Yes, and that's the food, the exercise, all these nutrients being used, all these metabolic factors. And if that equation is the same, it means that your weight stays the same. If whatever you are using is less than what you consume, you're going to gain weight. And if you want to create a deficit, all that must be less of what you're consuming.
Okay. And obviously, if our viewers out there wants to get a hold of you and just get to know more and get a diet according to their lifestyle and their metabolic rate and personalize to them, they can always just contact you.
Yes, and that's important because people are different.
Absolutely.
And it must suit your lifestyle, cultural trends, and also your medical condition, if any.
No. And in conclusion, is there any health tip that you can give to us?
So I would like to say life should be good, right? Food should be our friend. We've got this love-hate relationship with food, but we are actually what we eat.
Yes.
So good food in, we become good. Not so good food, then, things down the line will get influenced. Yes.
Definitely.
So again, also, there's no magic food. So eat a variety of foods. Different foods are high in different nutrients. Be active. Have carbohydrates, proteins and fat, but the better ones, better options. Drink lots of water. Be good to yourself in terms of your mind. So there's so many things that one can say, but I think moderation and variation is key.
Awesome. That's lovely. Thank you very much, Annalien. It was lovely talking to you. Okay, so we will end it here. Thank you to all the viewers for tuning in. We hope to see you next time again. I'm Jeanette Diergaard, your host for Flex, and we can flex our minds right after this. Okay. Tata.